Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtrothy, and this is the Eve Universe Show's continued coverage of the CSM 17, this time with Angry Mustache. How's it going? Oh my gosh.
Going good.
Making a good first impression. Well, I guess we could just start at the top of your post. Above your post, it says, it's been a while since you've seen Angry Mustache. Their last post was 1 year ago. Which
the Evo forums are awful. I don't post there.
That's fair. I just it drove to mind the fact that, like, you know, you did run last year, and so I think it's funny that, like, it's the 1 year anniversary.
That was the post.
Yeah, totally. No more. I think that's awesome. But it also tells me that, like, I mentioned this, like, kind of before the show. Of all of the candidates I talked to, you know, I'm so used to saying, like, oh man, I really like what you're doing. You should keep going. Because I think you've got really good voice out there. There aren't that many people running that ran last year and didn't make it, for example. But you were pretty close, I think, last year.
No,
you weren't close at all last year.
Cutoff was 2,200, and I know this by heart because I went over the alternate scenarios. You know, that sore loser feeling of, like, you know, if this had changed, no, it wasn't close. I had 350, and the cutoff was 2,200.
So Doctor Strange, going through all of the multiverse, didn't find a path.
Not a single one. Not a single one.
Well, a lot has happened. A lot has happened in the last year, and a lot of it has put a lot of focus on both what you said last year, and you've kind of built up a pretty decent reputation for yourself. I know that, like, anytime anything involving economics hits Reddit, there are people saying, like, I'll just wait till Angry Mustache tells us what to think. And I don't even take that in the same sort of, like, you know, Imperium takes state logic, but it's like, you've proven that you're going to put out a really sound analysis. So it's worth just, you know, excitingly waiting for your analysis. So I feel like this year you've garnered a lot of extra respect than you had last year, which is
hopefully because that was, like, the month after I lost 2016. You know, the 17 campaign's already started, and part of that campaign is just going throughout the year, just adding stuff.
Right. And so, just to pick one of these at random, if we look at the February MER Reddit post, oh my God, it's light mode. Why are you light mode? Ugh, whatever. You know, he's saying, quick observations. As noted, the header, some regions didn't pull data. Yeah, oh yeah, never mind. This is probably a bad example.
You want to see an interesting one, the combined November-December one's probably a good one to look at.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
This was the one where CCP redid the MER, basically. The MER continuing from this point is completely different.
Right. So, you know, we see some analysis of stuff, also kind of breaking down what's changing between these. I find this kind of analysis to be extremely useful. But, you know, the man backs up his shit. Agree with him or not, like, he puts out the good facts, you know? And I honestly, I usually agree. Especially with this last one, Pochvin, the land of dank ticks and dank frags. No, like, I think that you've absolutely proven yourself in this. Have you?
That's a link. You can click on it and show people what I mean by that.
Fair enough. Total destroyed. The red line is Pochvin. The yellow line is Delve. So you see, from July to September, Delve has this big spike, but underneath it all is this slow growing, but, you know, continuous, like, threat of Pochvin, I guess. And now it is up there with it's contending for the big boys, as it were.
Yep. It's contending with, you know, the Forge and those sort of high traffic regions. And as more and more people catch on, that line's getting higher, because that's from December. Right now, Pochvin's like number 3 or number 4. It's like it's about the same as all C5 wormholes combined at this point.
Right. Which, you know, a lot of people discount Pochvin. And I think that simply dismissing it will only cause us to not like develop it correctly, right? Like only if we can only people that truly appreciate what it really is are able to comment on it in an intelligent way. There's a lot of people that are trying to talk about Pochfin that maybe not even realize what is really going on there. Because even if you go into Pochfin every once in a while, it's really hard to actually have an understanding of what's really going on in there, given the fact that like there's no local, there's, you know, multiple systems. So you could be 2 jumps away from the biggest battle in the history of EVE Online and not even like realize that something is even going on in a very real way in Pochfin.
You'd be able to tell by tie-dye, but
actually, that's a good question whether or not Pochfin's all on one node.
It's on one. It's pretty much all on one.
Oh,
node.
well, then fair enough.
We've had situations where you know how Pochfin's still in space, right? So
Right.
where Pochfin is, the system in Pochfin is tie-dyed, its geographical neighbors aren't tie-dyed, but the 2 Pochfin systems next door are.
Actually, I guess that does make sense because by keeping them all on the same, like,
no one has an advantage from like intentionally lagging this Pochfin system.
Well, additionally, you don't have to worry about transmitting a handoff of a character between servers as often.
I don't know about that. That's a CCP question.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. Either way. So, but have you learned anything during this process of being the prophet to the R Eve, or
yeah, I've learned a lot.
Been?
Like, so I actually do something quite similar in real life, but with like our company's financial data and stuff, and sort of, and that's why I think I've gotten a lot better at doing this than when I started. Also, not only because I've more experience with Eve data, but also more with just data in general and how to deal with the thing. Because one thing that CCP did do in the past couple months is that the MER is very inconsistent.
Right.
Every single month, the format will be different from the previous month, and it's actually a lot of it's a lot of trouble to go in and it's actually good practice for me because I have to make the new MER data and transform into the same format as the old one so that you can actually do meaningful comparisons.
Yeah. Apples.
But with everyone, they only release that month, so if you look at it, you don't get the context.
Cool. Have you received any challenges to your thought process, or is it mostly just, you know, widespread approval?
Well, there are people who disagree. On every post, there's usually people who disagree in one form or another, and most of them are actually also really smart people. Like there's a poster, if you know him, called Fluorescent Flux, who also often post on MER, but not as much recently. I don't know if he quit or not.
Oh.
Who's right and what we agree on, what we disagree on. It's actually pretty insightful. Because I'm
that's really good.
My industry focus is primarily nullsec, so like I don't have as good of an understanding on how the T3 production chain works or what are the bottlenecks there because I've only done it on very small scales.
All right, so let's bring this home, I guess, when it comes to this whole thing. How does this translate to your value as a CSM member or prospective CSM member?
So I think the point where I'd be more valuable than everyone else is that I make presentations to corporate for a job, and what I find is that you really, if you want to get corporate to change their mind or make a decision, you have to explain the issue. You explain one issue and explain it in very simple terms, and you support it with data. So with data or actual effects. So like last time I made a slideshow about how the effect of component volumes affect why players are vertically integrated.
Right.
And this year I have something different, which I think CCP in the middle of working on. You get hints of it because it's a discussion on group income. So in EVE, it's very easy for a player to become rich. It's very hard for a group to become rich because how do you make money as a group? You can't really coerce your players because they'll just leave. And
I find that very interesting that a nullsec person, you said that you come from a nullsec perspective, because
yes,
in my experience, that's the reason why a lot of groups move to nullsec, is because the leadership
Yes,
it's so difficult for
nullsec
people
is one of
outside
the
of nullsec to get it.
places to get traditionally nullsec is one of the places you can get group income. Like like the smallest groups, they run on essentially everyone having their own money. And like if you and your 3 friends need a structure, it's like, hey guys, we'll all pitch in like $1 billion, we'll get the structure. And the bigger you scale up, the less that works. Like you can't
Right.
be like, hey guys, we lost 100 hacks. Can someone volunteer some like 30 builds so we can replace all our hacks so we don't lose
Hmm.
our space? Yeah,
Yeah.
it has to be a system, and the group has to gather income. Now, traditionally, nullsec has had sort of a monopoly on this, because the payment for nullsec is ratting, and ratting bounties are directly taxable. And previously, you had moons. You could hold moons, and the moon goo will be dumped directly into the tower hangar. This is before Lifeblood, and you get money that way.
Right.
And now, actually, CCP is realizing how important this is, and they've added group income to other places. So one thing some people are bemoaning is like, oh, why is there no more new small groups in nullsec anymore? Well, it's because you're better off going to Pochvin, because Pochvin is also direct bounty income, and that means you can also get some group income in Pochvin, and it's better money than nullsec. And one thing, if you heard at FanFest, they did was that they're adding LP taxation. What this means, you can now collect taxes in faction warfare space. You can do it in NPC nullsec, and groups you'll see more organized groups popping up there too, because now they can afford it.
Right. Well, I think so. Do you want to just jump into your presentation slides?
Sure thing, if you can bring it up.
Yep, I got it here.
That might be a bit problematic because what I see you bringing up is not the same. It's delayed, right? So
Yeah, by
maybe,
a few seconds, but
yeah. Okay. So the presentation I have this year is how industry taxes are messed up, and this is if you've managed an industrial group before, you'll know that industry taxes are not accurate. They lie. What you get is not what you think you get, and what you get is a pittance of what players actually think they pay. Like if the optics of industrial taxation is completely off. So if you can go back to the next slide.
right. Yep.
Okay, you're there.
Group income.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah. As soon
yeah.
as you say next slide, I go.
Let me just bring it up on my end so I can reference myself.
Fair enough. Um,
Okay, so this
yeah.
group thing we already talked about, which is that if there is no group income mechanic, your group will never develop in complexity. And in the end, what that happens is a lot of your members will run to a no block because you don't offer them anything. Well, if they live in a no block, they get SRP and they get the umbrella and they get jump bridges and crap. And one of the things that's really affected is that the industrial side of the game has basically no way to collect taxes because industry taxes are broken, and we'll show that on the next slide.
Right. I
So,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I have a question about mining taxes, but I assume we get there.
We'll get there.
Okay.
So, the basic point of this is that whenever you build an item in Eve, you'll see this little screen that pops up that says, "Oh, by the way, you're paying taxes to the owner of the structure." And ideally, CCP means that by doing this, the owner of the structure can collect some income, and then there'll be an incentive to defend the structure if you provide a really good service. If you build it, they will come, and you make some money that way. But that's really, for anyone who's owned an industrial structure knows that's not the case. They make jack shit for money, and that's why. And the primary reason for that is because the mechanics are very counterintuitive, and the numbers aren't what they actually say. Next slide, please.
Yep. Adjusted price.
So at the heart of this is an issue called adjusted price. Now, this is a value in the database that's not directly exposed in basically anywhere in the client itself. You have to get this out of the game API. And this adjusted price value is actually what drives all industry pricing in Eve, not the average price that you see when you have an item in a hangar. That's something else. But my suspicion is they put in this adjusted price value after some players manipulated the average item in order to print integer overflow amounts of LP, and so they manipulated an item to be worth like 5 trillion ISK and then blew it up over and over.
It's the one time that I can think of that CCP actually like rewound something, like took it back.
They rolled back that change because they think that
well, they took the ISK too. Most of the time it's like, well,
ISK, yeah.
Good job, we're just going to cut it off. It was the one time that they're like, no, we're not going to let that.
They also
just
took
be a
some
thing
of the,
that
they also
happened.
took the items that weren't sold. So like
right,
those guys got nothing in the end.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, adjusted price is there as a safeguard against this, and at least that's my belief, because adjusted price also hasn't been adjusted since at least 2013. Like 2013 is the latest they can do this, because if you're familiar with the EVE industry, you can sort of figure out the roughly when they locked in these prices just by looking at the Moongoo price distribution. So this price is about what you expect to see around 2013, 2014. So after the Technetium change, before Lifeblood is about where Moongoo is. If you look at these numbers.
Where tie that together for me. Like, how do the adjusted price relate to the actual price? Like, they have all different percentages.
It's not. Adjusted price is a value in the database they set sometime in like 2014, 2015.
Do we know what it was based off of originally, or is this just the price of things?
I believe
at that
originally this was like the rough price of things at that point, and they just locked it in for the next 7-8 years.
It does make sense, because the things that are the most out of whack are the things that, like, the R4 materials that have jumped in value.
Right, because before on an R, how you get R4 is that a moon you put a tower on it and then R4 just comes out.
Meanwhile, technetium's gone down. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So adjusted price could be somewhere like, yeah. So do we know how do you know that adjusted price is what gets used for anything?
Because that is what the math shows, and I will show that to you later on a later slide.
Got it. All right, ready to go. Good to go.
Yeah, next one.
Addendum: adjusted price messes up refinery fees.
And this is how you know is that so is that can people read the text there? I didn't realize that the resolution would be so bad on stream, but you can sort of crop out the text and just show the picture.
It says, hold on, No, I can't.
Why not just link the slideshow so everyone can go see it?
Yeah, I can do that too.
Yeah, just put the slideshow in chat so people.
And I'll also put it in the doobly-doo. Just remind me if I don't.
Okay.
But it says 5% nominal tax rate, expected tax total or tax paid 207 times 5% equals 10.3 million. Effective tax rate 1/207 or 0.5% or 0.005. Adjusted price of Morphite is 4,429. Market price is 45,000. Oh.
Yeah, and if you scroll back to the previous one, and that's why you see that this is in 1DQ where the refinery tax is 5%. If Morphite was 4,400, you would pay 1 million in refinery fee for that amount of Morphite. And if you scroll back to the previous one, actually I did not include the adjusted price of Morphite in that screenshot, but I can tell you from the API, the adjusted price of Morphite is 4429, and it has been 4429 for the past 10 years. That's why when you go and refine Morphite...
Well, you say it right there, adjusted price of Morphite, 4429.
Yeah. That's why when you go refine Morphite, even though Morphite is worth a ton now, you are paying the old price for it, because adjusted price has not been adjusted.
Okay.
So again, if you go back to the previous one, you'll see how badly some of the adjusted prices are actually out of whack.
Real quick, though, to make sure I understand what you're saying, does that mean that basically it's cheaper than it should be to reprocess Morphite because it's evaluating it at much lower level?
Yes, it's cheaper to reprocess Morphite, cheaper to reprocess R4. Pretty much everything except neodymium is cheaper to refine.
Right. Great. So I'm with you so far. How people think industry taxes work. This is my favorite part. Yeah.
how people think industry taxes work is that, so if you're a new industrialist and you're planning to build something, and you look at the list of facilities and you see there, it says when you go to structure browser,
Actually, time out
10%
if you don't
taxes.
mind.
Okay.
Because there's a question about what we were just talking about, and I kind of want to address that before we move on to the next thing.
Is the
which is
reason that battleships are broken? Yes, it's part of it.
Yeah, they intentionally actually nerfed the
Yeah.
insurance value of capital ships because they were just
Yeah.
too valuable to insure. And the more something takes other things besides minerals, like that usually doesn't get counted towards the insurance.
Yeah, and for Dorion, that's why I'm making this slide, because they don't use estimated value; they use adjusted price, which like I said before, hasn't been adjusted.
So if you reprocessed Morphite a year ago, it would have cost you exactly the same amount to reprocess it, even if the price has changed.
2 years ago, because Morphite spiked a year ago, right? If you reprocess Morphite 2 years ago, 2 years ago would cost you exactly the same.
Well, it wouldn't have mattered. A year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago?
Yeah, until like, I don't know, like 2015 or
something. Right. And it's whenever this happened.
Yeah.
Which now I want to do some homework. But, all right, so how people think industry taxes work. I apologize. Let's do that.
So suppose you're a new industrialist who hasn't had someone told you how EV mechanics works in particular. You go to a facility and you see 10% taxes. Now, what would you think how much tax you'd pay for using this? If you're building a ship that costs 100 million, remember, this is also adjusted price. This is not average price or estimated price. This is adjusted price of the inputs.
Right.
And so you go in and you think, well, how much I'm going to pay? Would you think you'd pay 1% or 10%, or do you pay a value based on the actual system index? Because what I'm willing to bet is, unless they have been explained to a Neve player being told they are expecting to build an item in a station with 10% taxes, expects to lose 10% of the value of their item in taxes.
Right, because they're thinking of margins.
Right. Well, not margins. They're thinking.
Well, I mean, they're thinking like cost of production.
Taxes. Like,
yeah.
You're thinking, oh, I bought a gallon of milk, and this gallon of milk is $5 with 5% sales tax. I'm paying 25 cents in taxes. Right. That's how people expect taxes to work, but that's not how it works in EVE.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Is that like they're already in the frame of thinking of like processing things in terms of like their margin and whether or not it's profitable and whatnot. And 10% is often considered to be a relatively okay standard for a step up, right? Like if I'm going to have somebody build it or I'm going to have somebody haul it. So, I would probably look at that and not even think about it twice, even if I am an experienced pilot or, industrialist, because it just seems natural that it would mean that.
Well, here's the other empirical evidence, though, is that in Goonstorm, any corp can put down industrial structures, and this was a while ago, but one corp had its taxes set to 20%, and guess what? Nobody used their structures.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so how does it actually work?
They see that and think, oh, 20%, these guys are robbing me blind. I'm going to use this 10% structure to save myself some money. Well, you're not actually saving yourself money, because you're going to go to the next slide?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like the better point, or not the better point, but like it's absolutely true that people, like anytime I discuss the changing of prices or taxes, people are like, well, that's going to kill the profitability of things, or whatever, as if it's like a big chunk of their stuff. So
right, because this is how industry taxes actually work. The percent you see on the structure is the percent of the index modified job fee. It is not a percent of the value of the item, which means system index has a far bigger impact on the cost, on how much money you actually lose, than the tax fee. So a 100% industry tax in a 1% system is cheaper than a 10% industry tax in a 5% system.
I think you're going to make me sad. Not because you're wrong, but because you're right. So what causes system index?
System index raise is caused by people using it. The more people build in the system, the higher the more that system index goes up.
So what you're telling me is that the more I concentrate my group's industry efforts into one place, and therefore making them have to pay more individually due to a higher system index, the more money I make.
Yes, which I'll get to that in a later slide. You hit on
Okay,
the point exactly.
okay. That sounds awful. All right. Are we good with this side then?
Yeah.
Okay. A percent of a percent is an inaccurate number. Yeah, I mean this is tiny.
So the next slide is for me showing you this in action. So this is me putting a Chronos with a market cost of about 1.1 to 1.2-ish billion. The estimated item value, remember, this is based off the adjusted price, and on a Tech 2 ship, Goo is underpriced, Morphite is underpriced, so this number is a lot lower than what you would expect it to, than the actual cost of the ship. Even if I bite all the parts off the market. So what the structure owner actually gets, so on a 10% tax, is first you have the system cost index, which is 3.71, that gets you a 27 million ISK job tax, then a 5% structure roll bonus reduction. Again, this is not 5% off of 371. This is 5% of 27 million.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you end up with that 26 million gross job cost, and the structure owner gets 10% of that.
So you're getting 0.3% at like.
You're getting 2 million out of a 750 million, but really it's like a 1 billion ship. The structure owner takes 3 million ISK, and the effective tax rate is 0.3, not 10%.
Right, which is pretty wild, right?
So that's why the other corp, the corp that I was talking about, their leadership actually understood this mechanic. So they set theirs to 20, and it's okay because they have a SOTIO, and they have a very good system, so that their indexes were lower, but because they set their taxes higher, people refuse to use their system, even though it will be cheaper. Because those people did not understand this mechanic.
Wow. Okay. I mean, it is quite unintuitive. So, yeah, because like even under this situation, it's still bumping it up to 20% is less than a percent still. Like less than a full percent.
Yeah, you see the 10% there. If you bumped it to 20, it would go up to 5 million ISK. That's it.
Right. I know I'm sounding kind of like stupid about this, but it's wild to me first of all, and I'm trying to like make sure it's broken down as like it's almost unbelievable. All right. So
you're not an industry newbie, after all.
Yeah.
With this, but it's so obscure that most people don't know this is how it works.
Yeah, I mean, like this is one of those things that like I knew that. I mean, to be honest, I've never really bothered paying that much attention to it. I knew that we didn't get very much taxes in from that versus bounties, but like this is wild as to why. I've never opened up the crate and been like, that doesn't make any sense at all. All right. Perverse incentives.
This is what I was touching on earlier, is that because so now that you know how this works, now think about how you make money with this system.
Right.
How you make money with this system is you shove all your members into one system, you jack up the index as high as you can, and you fuck your members to make money for yourself.
You're also burning more money.
You're also burning more because more of it is being sunk as system index.
So you're actually hurting your empire too. Like
you're hurting your empire. This is not the only case. Broker fees also do this. The higher you set your broker fees, the more money you send directly to CCP, and it just gets lit on fire. Your members lose that money. You don't see that money because broker fees is not capped at 0.5% cut to CCP. It's 50% of the broker fee. I'll have another presentation on that if I actually get on the CSM. Yeah, so any broker fee more than 1% is fucking your members.
It's worth noting that like
it's a false choice. Like if you set it at anything other than 1, you're just fucking your members.
It costs the same fuel either way.
Yeah. And this is a change to be made to nerf the TTT without considering how it would fuck everyone else everywhere else.
Wild. All right. Next slide.
I'm out of slides, but I'm still going through perverse incentives.
Well, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so which is that I basically said all that, and also the other thing this leads to is that industrial structures themselves make no money for the owner.
Right. Like I was saying, the fuel's going to be the same either way. So if it doesn't bring in any money, you're
Right.
still paying for the fuel.
You're still paying for the fuel, and you're still putting up the risk of it getting blown up by someone else. Like most groups will put up industrial structures because there's just something that's expected, like it's competitive services for member competition. But if you are a group that wants to specialize in industry and think like, we'll build our own special economic zones, and then we will make money, and then I'll get a cut of the money for hosting all these factories, forget it. You're not getting any of the money because this taxation mechanic is broken. Like you can build, you can build like a trillion isk of stuff out of your structure, and you'll see like 500 mil of it.
Okay. So where else do we see adjusted price show up?
The entirety of industry runs on adjusted price, and I have a feeling that insurance does too, but I have not been able to prove that like I have with Refine industry. And by the way, like if you do reactions, you'll wonder why neomercurite costs so much to react. Yeah, it's because industry runs off adjusted price. And if you look at the initial sheet of moon goo, neodymium is crazy expensive, and so is platinum.
So it costs too much to do it compared to other things.
Yeah, only compared to other things. It's still
But that means it makes you more money.
Well, it does, but the thing is like
that's so
that price is baked into everything. That price is baked into the cost of every ship. Like if it costs more, everyone's prices go up because more of the ISK is being sunk away. But I argue this is a better place to sink ISK than high sales taxes, because sales taxes suck. Sales taxes are the worst form of taxes, but like they're levied by lazy governments because it's easy.
Right.
And the more ISK that is sunk by industry, the less ISK would have to be sunk by sales taxes, and I think that makes for a better game.
Right. Okay. Wow. All right. So you have you said that there was no more slides, but there's a slide that says
there's one more slide.
Solution.
Yeah. The solution is make industry a percentage of the estimated item value. That way, the industry tax is independent of the system index. So if I build a battleship in a 10% system and a battleship in a 1% system, the structure owner still gets the same cut. That's what people are expecting when they actually think about industry taxes as part of their calculation. And that would also make it so that if you see the index is too high, putting down another structure to relieve the indexes and save your members money, that doesn't cost you any more money besides fuel, because what you get out of the structure is no longer dependent on indexes. Okay, that's something like members would like, right? Because I don't want to pay 10% in this system to build a thing. Leader, put down another structure, another system. Right. I want this to be lower. Well, you do that, you hurt your own income.
Because now you're paying twice as much to get less.
Yeah, you're paying twice as much to get less.
Awesome. This
Perverse
is awesome.
incentives, right? You're by helping your members, you're hurting yourself.
Right. Well, it's not even just perverse incentive. It's like literally pitting the two against each other, right? Like.
Mm-hmm. And adjusted price more often to reflect game changes.
So hold on. And I almost hesitate to ask this question, but wouldn't the estimated item value open it to massive manipulation?
Well, I wouldn't adjust it that often, but even once a year is frequently enough. Not like once every 7-8 years.
I mean, the make industry fee a percentage of estimated item value.
Estimated item value is based on the adjusted price. You can't manip it.
Oh, I see. So make it so that the fee that we levy is a percentage of the estimated item value, and adjust the adjusted price more frequently.
Yeah.
Got it. Yes. Perfect. Excellent. And then, of course, elect you to get more slideshows. Do you promise to come here to walk us through it?
I mean, it's easy as long as it's not NDA'd. I don't see why not.
Fair enough. All right. Well, okay. So, but what about mining taxes? Because this is one of those things that, like, You obviously know a thing or two.
Yeah.
Let me.
So
I have a question specifically
yeah,
though, because like I keep hearing that you can't tax mining, right? Like from like an Athanor or something like that. Like
you
it's not
can,
high level income,
but
but you
it's
can
not
tax the
easy.
refine. Yeah, you can tax the
It's
refining. Why doesn't that work?
remember when the slide we said about estimated item about the adjusted price not being adjusted? You want to go back to that page and see the go back to that one and show the difference in adjusted price that determines your refine fee and the current price.
What?
That's it.
Right.
That one.
It,
The one before the one before this one
this one?
that shows the price difference.
Yeah,
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 it
yeah.
shows yellow, green, gray bars.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yep,
one.
I'm on it.
So you see how Promethium is 4,000 adjusted and 2,800 in Jita. So if you say, oh, by the way, I think it's fair to set a 5% refine tax for to collect some stuff. Effectively you're taking away 5% of your members' income, but your members mine a billion of Promethium in Jita price, but since the refined price is a seventh of that, you're only getting at 5% 5 million out of it. Your members mine a billion in Promethium, they go to a structure with 5% refinery fee, they refine it, and you get 5 million.
Whew. Okay, so but if I was an R4 Moon Goo person,
You still be
oh wait, no,
screwed
I'm
because
really screwing myself at that point
hydrocarbons are 100.
because they're paying a
Atmosphere,
fraction.
they're paying a fraction, a small fraction of
So I
that.
need to like do technetium.
Right, but that means that how viable using the refinery taxes to tax your moon miners is based on what you have. And
Yeah,
the
yeah,
only
that's
things that is valuable is neodymium,
okay.
technetium, and dysporium, and for everyone else can go eat shit.
So it's kind of like the halfway point, right? It doesn't have the double percentage problem, but it does have the adjusted price problem.
Yeah. And the other
Wowzers.
thing is, because they added moon goo compression, there's no way to force your members to refine at your Athanors. You set your number too high, and they will ship it off to Jita to be refined in the TTT, so refinery for like 1%, and that's it.
Sure.
Yeah.
You might not know this off the top of your head. Is this also because this has always been what like one of those things that's bugged me? Is this also how they determine the cost of PI taxes?
PI taxes is different. Every single PI has every single tier of PI has a fixed price that doesn't change. Like all the
Oh,
P1s are like 60 isk, I think, and then like
got
all
it.
the P2s or whatever. It's on Eve Uni somewhere. I can go find it. But that's how they do PI taxes. It's purely dependent on volume of PI and not on the type.
Astonishing. All right. Well, I think that you've blown my mind and you've still got like 40 or like a couple like 10, 20 minutes left to go. So, let's go back to your campaign thread and see if there's anything else because I think honestly, and thank you for everybody who has stuck through it. If this was boring to you, it's worth looking into it, if only to get a taste of what this guy brings to the table, right? Like, or to put it a different way, if he gets elected, you don't have to see all these slideshows. CCP gets to have to watch all these slideshows, and that might be a good thing. Wild. Do you know by the like just do you know if CCP is aware of this? Is this like something that's the way it's supposed to be and it's just nobody knows it? Or do you
I'm
suspect that
not
CCP
sure.
might not even be aware of it?
I don't know. I'm certain that most people at CCP don't know, but I don't know if their guy in charge of industry and the economy know. If he doesn't, I plan to make him aware.
Have you talked to CCP about any of the like I mean a lot of people get reached out by CCP like you put out good analysis. I
I'm
would have
not one of
assumed that
them.
you're wow. Okay.
Yeah, I think I've talked to one CCP dev, and that was basically and that was basically it.
Wild. All right. Uh I'm going to just open up your opportunity since we did talk about perverse incentives. This is something I've been going into a lot. Um, why don't we talk a little bit about DBS?
Yeah, so DBS is a good idea, poorly implemented, because the core theory of DBS is sound. Is that you overgraze your fields and that's it. Your fields become fallow and you got to go somewhere else. But you can't implement it by itself without considering the ecosystem, which is that um, which is that when people stop ratting in a null sec system, it just dies. Like people pass through there sometimes, I guess, but the majority of things that die in nullsec usually, unless they're either battles, which are like they're black sheep events as far as system statistics go, like you can't really rely on them, or they catch a ratter and they kill him, or the response fleet comes and kills the ganker. When no one's ratting, that system sees no activity, and the DBS just doesn't recover. It recovers by itself, which is very very slow. So you so you sort of just made the system unusable. So once it gets farmed out, it doesn't recover. There's not like a crop rotation thing where it recovers. So
Hasn't
that's
CCP like made it so it recovers faster?
it's not enough. Like
Right.
2 ratters per system.
So they've
And the
made
other thing is
steps in that direction, but not
DBS is
sufficient.
not time zone dependent. So like if you live in a multi time zone alliance, all alliances are now in soft null because you have to defend at all times, or at least try to defend. If the Chinese people, if like the Chinese people wake up, right after downtime and they farm the system, that's it. Your system DBS is dead before you even get to log in.
Right. The thing I don't like about the DBS system is that like it goes directly in conflict with the ADM system, right?
Yes,
And
that is another thing.
like I'm all about conflicting objectives or desires.
Contesting instead of conflicting.
Well, no, no.
Maybe
I
that's a
mean,
better
so
word
like
to
the
use.
classic example is the very beginning of Mario, right? You go, you hit the block, and suddenly there's a mushroom that comes up and it starts moving towards the pit. You can go after the mushroom, which is a much more aggressive play, but you're going towards danger, right? So you have the conflicting desire to remain safe and to get the mushroom. This is what makes game, decisions in games interesting. This is not that kind of conflict. This is just design working against itself.
Yeah, it's supposed to have a trade-off, but the balance is so far off that the clear decision is just move out and just or or considering the current state of nullsec, just go run abyssals. That's that's sort of
Right.
you play Magic the Gathering
I
or
have.
know of it. Yeah, the meme about dives to Doomblade, which is like why are all creatures useless? Dives to Doomblade, and this is sort of the Eve equivalent as why are all these people not in null sec / low sec / whatever go run abyssals.
It's funny because years ago I said, I've been commenting about the fact that I don't like the fact that abyssals don't adjust or impact ADM since they first started, and I kind of like jokingly mused that the true sign of success of the Abyss is when people start complaining that they can't even keep their ADMs up anymore because people are doing the Abyss. I feel like I've been monkey pawed a little bit on this one. So basically, rather than making the Abyss really good, which they haven't made it, they haven't worked on improving the Abyss as much as they have just made ratting.
Well, they have C6, not C6.
That's true.
Tier
I mean, they
6,
introduced
tier
T6.
6 makes stupid money. So does tier 5, by the way. Like it
Yeah.
was hard at the beginning. People have solved it, and they haven't.
Well, that's
really
more of
made
what
it
I'm talking
that much
about.
harder.
Is that they haven't iterated in that regard, right? They haven't kept it fresh. Which, if you're going to have a system like that, like the randomness allows it for it to last longer, but that's you still have to keep it fresh on some level, especially when the nature of how fits work, right? Once
But
something can be
but
solved,
really,
with
the thing of why Abyss is really harmful is that it's taking player interaction out of it. Like the only time you interact with another player is when you come out, and if you're in high sec, you might get suicide ganked. But since you can run this anywhere, you run in high sec, and like there's a small window you might get suicide yanked, and you know, for every person does that, it's one less person who can actually die in nullsec.
Well, I mean, yes, there's a narrow window of time in which you are gankable, but there's a long window of time in which somebody can find you and be ready to gank you. So it's not like they have to happen to be walking by at about that time, but they do have to catch you within that like 10 minutes or so that you're in the filament.
So if you're good, if you keep one character on the outside and you see the catalysts and thrashers lining up, it's not hard to just escape, because there are ways to warp safely out of an abyssal trace exit and make you not possible to be shot.
I haven't heard that one before. I know that there's a lot of people that like will dump their healer or whatever into another ship like an orca, but you're at 0, so once you line out,
this is mainly like frigates, like
Oh yeah,
that's... frigate Abyss. There's I mean, even if they kill you, you killed a 30 millionist.
Right.
Like,
I would argue that more than anything else, Frigate Abyss is the thing that has hurt ganking, because now there's a fairly decent chance that it's not a 400 million plus healer that comes out. It's, a 60 millionist hawk that you probably aren't going to kill, or like a triple of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
and CCP's sort of not. I think maybe finally CCP's turning around to the fact that when everyone goes to do instance PvE, it kills not only open world PvE but also a good portion of open world PvP. But then again, this is an issue that I think every single CSM candidate has talked about to some degree, how they want to do this. So let's talk about it. They all talked about that.
Yeah, and
talking about it doesn't serve any purpose.
I will say that even though I push back at least on some, I do agree on certain levels. I've suggested to force it out of 0.6 and above. Like there are. Even I agree that there are things that need to be done. At the very least, it being safe in Jita is ridiculous. So yes, we can move on to the next thing. But back to the DBS ADM thing. Like, it really bugs me to have game design that directly works against itself.
Yeah. I mean, DBS also works against ESS, because with the way that I've seen people propose, and I agree with how to make these two systems symbiotic rather than conflicting, is that DBS can drop below 100, but at 100 you don't get less money. It increases the portion that goes into the ESS. So in the end, you get the same amount of money as you did before, but you get more of it delayed at the end of the ESS cycle, which also means the more heavily used the system is, the more money gets put into the ESS, and the juicier prize it is, and the more work you have to do to actually defend it. So that turns a heavily ratted system from becoming what is a dead zone in a bit to a magnet for stuff. Because imagine that you're ratting for like an hour, right? And the DBS is at 50. That means instead of 30% of your money going to the ESS, it's some scaling, and let's just say 30 plus 50% of what's left, so 65 now goes into the ESS. And at the end of an hour, instead of there only being 40 million in the ESS, there's like 150. That's a juicy prize, which means there's a more incentive to come and take it. More likely that someone will die and actually raise the DBS back up.
I should have made another cup of coffee. So, let me. The DBS takes the same percent no matter what, right? So it accumulates faster than the DBS because everybody, or ESS.
The ESS takes the same amount no matter what.
So the ESS is accumulating faster because you two are earning more, right?
No, it's the ES. So imagine you rat for 100 million per hour, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the DBS is at 100, the ESS takes 30, you get 70, and at the end of 2 hours, you get that 30 back.
Okay.
Now, whenever the DBS drops below 100, the percent taken by the ESS increases. So if the DBS is at 50, the ESS takes 65, you get 35. At the end of 2 hours, you get your 65 back. Now, the issue is that 65 is at risk for those 2 hours for longer, and because ESS is a amount you can see on the map, people will see oh, this guy just put over the course of 2 hours 130 million into the ESS. I'm gonna go for that.
Right, but to put it a different way, if you get below 100, further reductions are not full losses, but are just more money that's on risk before.
They're not losses at all if you can defend your space.
Right, exactly. Which, I mean, that CCP implemented it to soften the blow. Like, they could just give you a smaller than 100% payout, but instead it's you get 100%. If it goes below 100%, you still get 100%. It's just a bigger percent of it's at risk.
That's how I would like the system to be changed. That is not how it works right now.
Oh, okay. So how does it work right now?
How it works right now is that if a DBS goes down to 70, 30% goes to the ESS, and your part is just lost. You just get less money.
Wait, what? Okay.
DBS right now drops below 100%. You just get less money, period.
So even after it gets paid out, you still end up with less money.
Yes.
Okay.
What I said
and
before,
it's a higher percentage.
No. It's
just so it's always
money.
The same percentage right now. You want it to soften the blow that way. Is that what I'm trying to do?
I want it so that lower DBS puts more of your money at risk, but if you can defend it, you make the same.
I like it. I dig it. I thought that they did make a change that was like that.
Nope,
Maybe not.
It's not like that.
Okay, well, fair enough. You gave me a false memory or something.
That change, I think, put it into the main bank. Reserve bank, where I think nobody used
That's what it was. That's right. Everybody was like, oh my God, they fixed it. And then they're like, psych, this is the reserve bank. And everybody's like, what? It felt very, like, reading that passage felt very like...
that girl snatching the football away from Charlie Brown.
Well, I mean, they laid it out, right? Like, it was doubling, right? You got to read the fine print.
It's such a pointless change.
Yeah, it's bizarre. So I guess my whole point of like digging into this is because like often we say that, oh, the DBS is bad, but the problem is that like there's a kernel there that was there's a reason why it happened. I'll put it that way. And there's a lot of things going on with it. And if you talk to people about what's wrong with the DBS, you get different answers, right?
Yep.
So it's obviously, a confluence of different things. But the question is, what is the catalyst? What is the thing that's really causing the problem? Is it the fact that it conflicts with the ADM? Is it the fact that it takes too long to recover? Is it the fact that it goes down too far?
It's a bit of everything, but the key fact is that ratting's just not great income, even without DBS. Like,
right.
If you look at the MER, wormholes make more blue loot than all the ratting in Eve, and wormholes is a much smaller segment of the population. So CCP, I mean, their job was to kill the Delta Time unit. They succeeded, but they also took down the rest of nullsec with it.
Right. Well, so CCP around the top of the year talked about new sites and new PvE content to be coming to nullsec, not to replace the anomalies as they are right now, but to augment them, maybe like new escalations or whatever. Right?
I thought that was the crab beacon, and they were done.
Well,
with it.
They mentioned the crab beacon as an example of the kind of thing that they were looking at, but they said like this is going to be when CCP Radati said like this is going to be the year of content. Like that's one of the specific things he was talking about.
Year's half over, we haven't seen shit.
Yeah, well, I found it staggering that there wasn't anything in the keynote, like there was no meat for nullsec thrown out there about it. I know that they want stuff to come out through the arcs, but I guess my question is like, because you said if in the end the ratting isn't up to par, could it very well be that there are sites coming that would fix that problem in the fact that they provide a better reward? And the issue is that like there were a lot of things wrong with anoms as they were like in the whole meta of things because they're old and overwhelmable and all that stuff. But now they didn't give you guys the better option. That's the part that's missing.
Where's the carrot? There is none.
Yeah. If you don't want me to do this, what do you want me to do?
I think CCP's dev throughput is so low that even getting that this year or next year is going to be tough. But in the meantime, things like changing how the industry taxes work, that's actually not that hard because
Yeah, absolutely.
database function. So I'm more focused on showing them what is easily changeable and why it should be changed. I think that I'm happy if I can just do that rather than, you know, putting getting CP to revise the next Eve roadmap, because there's a lot of low hanging fruit in Eve that can be fixed, but I think either CP doesn't know that the fruit exists, or they don't think that it's the right action to do.
Right.
And I think that's where the CSM or someone like me on the CSM would be most useful, is to bring light to these issues, because I can bet this industry price issue we just talked about
Hmm.
is not on CCP's radar.
Yeah, that is wild. I'm running low on time, but yeah, the thing, I guess my position about it is that we don't get to set the roadmap. CCP does. So if we know that CCP is trying to do something, or if we suspect it, then it's worth exploring that. And I was just asking, like, if CCP was to deliver that, would that be the missing piece? Do we actually, is it really that we just have a content sized hole in nullsec right now? I don't actually think that's true. I think that if you came out with a ton of new good content in nullsec right now, you would still have the DBS problem.
Yeah, I don't think it will fix the malaise with nullsec, so to speak.
Yeah.
That's on a bigger that needs CCP to rethink what the role of nullsec is. And right now it seems like at least what it feels like is their belief that nullsec is a place for people to get their ships killed, and that's it.
Right. Well, yeah, and I'm not saying it'll fix all of that, but my point was more that that isn't what's wrong with income generation. DBS will probably still have to be addressed. It would still be a problem even in that case. I mean, look at there's somebody in chat talking about how the crab beacon's great, but it just
Yeah.
nukes your DBS. Like that right there. It's like the more you do the right thing, the worse it is for you. You're being disincentivized from doing the right thing, and you're
Just
putting the
like
organization
putting
in
down a
conflict with the
structure
individual.
to lower your indexes, huh? There's a ton of these. I have a giant list somewhere that I plan to make slideshows about one by one if CCP will listen.
Right. And CCP, it is weird that like CCP said that nullsec and the nullsec revamp stuff was like the highest priority, and then it got deprioritized for the structure stuff. But then by FanFest, we heard nothing about it, which
That's all faction warfare.
I find suspicious. I'll put it that way. I don't know what it means exactly, but I do find it suspicious.
Uh, it'd be interesting to find out.
Is there anything that you want to talk about as we kind of wind things up?
I think I'm pretty happy. Like I'm actually surprised. Maybe because I hang out with the wrong crowd, but I hope that making this sort of weird game design information more public would would go a great deal to help make the game a bit better, because Eve is very complicated, that no one knows all the rough spots of Eve, and I can only help them out one by but there's a lot of things that can be done by just smoothing out some of the systems of these that are counterproductive or new player traps, or can't be understood unless you have a guy from like 2000 who's been playing since 2006 explain the mechanics to you. Like that's there's so much there's a very big knowledge hole in Eve that makes it harder to get into. Some of it is because it's obscure, but other parts is because what the game actually tells you is counterintuitive.
Or just doesn't tell you at all, and thus you're left to your own devices, and you then make counterintuitive assumptions.
And then
Or I mean, you make intuitive assumptions, and the answer is counterintuitive.
Yeah, and then you say, this game sucks, I'm quitting.
Yeah, and that's ultimately the biggest problem. Do you feel like the only way to learn EVE Online is by the players, or do you feel like CCP has a responsibility to teach the game better than
I
they have
think CCP has a responsibility to both teach it better and to change some of their mechanics so that you don't hurt yourself by following common sense. Now, there's also other things like how there's an analogy I'd like is that if you could choose to be born in Somalia or Sweden, what would you choose? And I think most people will say Sweden, and that choice is why no blocks are so popular for new players, and why like the flow of new players to other sectors of the game is a trickle, is because no blocks have the institutional knowledge to build a Sweden and other people don't.
Right. But the problem with that is that if you get through the tutorial, which provides you nothing to be confident in, if you're not already ready to join a null block, like at that point, you're probably not going to find enough to do in the game just on your own, or not just a null block, but like a group or whatever that group is.
One of those like
ultimately, I think that's the problem, is that like
player traps. Yeah.
If you don't feel like you're ready yet, then you're going to just fail out. That's why I say that there needs to be, more things for people to do to keep them interested in the game long enough for them to gain a sense of mastery, because they're not going to want to join a several thousand player alliance if they think that they're going to just be a burden, right? A lot of people don't want to do that.
I don't know. Like, we make it a point of pride that we take you from zero to hero.
Right. You guys do. But my point is, how many people never even try to reach out, never even try to look into an organization because they have the assumption.
Too many.
Right, exactly. Because you get into a game, you don't want to just start bugging no, I need to learn the basics first. But in EVE, if you try to do that, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. Again, being counterintuitive.
To the person in chat, they said they'd be born in Somalia. I think there's a higher % chance you die of dysentery than become a pirate.
I'm going to walk away from that one. So what was the moment this last year that made you the most, I guess, upset that you didn't get elected, right? What was the moment? It's like, I could have stopped this. I could have at least said something.
The entire capital industry change. Like, that change came out a month before the election, and anyone with half a brain could tell it was going to be completely dog crap. And it took a whole year for them to fix it. Almost exactly to a year that they released the changes that would make capitals buildable again. That was a completely unforced error. And if you look at that mirror, you'll see they showed it themselves at FanFest. There was not a single capital ship built between the capital industrial change and and until FanFest, right? Because and I think, I don't know if ECB doesn't realize or don't care what the implication is that huge demand shock has on the economy, which is that not only are the capital builders not buying minerals, there's people are too scared to use caps or too scared to lose them.
You mean that Siege Green, which made capitals cheaper again, by FanFest there wasn't any new capital production.
Between they showed a slide at FanFest. Let me ask someone if they have it. Let me see if I can,
well, my point is that like capitals are a process, and given the fact that the industry changes affected all of the tiers, I wouldn't have expected there to be capitals in their final stages of production or rolling off the lines by the time.
No, capitals don't build that slow. Like in the old stage, a capital goes from mineral to ship in like.
Well, yeah, but now, but you're not going to like. There are new bonuses all the way down to the reaction level.
Okay.
So there's a lot of people with like raw materials, and then you have to react it, and then you have to build it into components.
It's that actually isn't that fast. We had people who built the new capitals up to the whole step itself within about 2 months.
Right,
but there was
a lot less time between that and Siege Green and FanFest.
Well, no, it went from there was a 10-month window of time where people could have built capitals and didn't build a single one. Okay, because we had people preparing from the initial patch notes to prepare to build these new capitals, and once they actually went in live, they realized it just was completely bonkers, even though they had all the skills and all the blueprints and all the everything. And
did you say 10 months?
I say there's a 10-month window where building capital was
from
feasible
the announcement of Siege Green?
skill-wise. Yeah, it was buildable skill-wise. but it only took 2 months for them to get ready because these are people who have dozens of characters and specialize in everything.
Right.
And they could do it. They chose not to because it just made no sense. And the fact that CCP is so callous about this whole part of their game just completely broken for a year and not adjusted is just a wild moment to me. I think that was a if you do this then we resign moment for me because it was such a stupid change.
What do you say to the concept that it was a soft cap on capitals, that they didn't want to stop capital production as a hard
but they
line?
Did. But they did.
Well, those who still found it worth it did.
There's nobody. There's not a single one. You can look. They released the data at FanFest. Not a single capital ship, not counting freighters or jump freighters or orcas, was built between the capital industrial change and Siege Green.
I know people who built capitals during that time. We sold capital core temperature regulators at that time.
That's not a build. That's sold a capital core regulator. I have one. I never used it.
Okay. Huh.
Yeah.
I'll have to look into that.
These during the first couple of weeks, there were people getting ready to build a capital, and they said, "I'm losing $6 billion when I do this. Why am I doing this?"
Yeah. If you get a chance, please share that. That I didn't catch that in the data. That would be. We're going to go with dramatic. I'm not doubting you. It's just I want that piece of information because that would be a banner that I would fly for sure.
Yeah, I found it. Give me a second. Let me put it in chat. That one there is the picture. And we actually looked at it and we think they pulled their data wrong. Is that they made a jitter? The jitter actually doesn't exist. It's actually a 0. The jitter is artificial due to their rolling average algorithm.
I see. Right. So these spikiness back here in the 2021 era was what I was talking about, where this is when people weren't.
That's before the change. That's before the change. See,
so
that spike? That's leading up to the change. The change happens right where you see it flatten out.
Got it.
Move your mouse a bit to the right.
Yeah, I'm there right now. Yeah. So it builds up because everybody's getting prepared, and then it cuts off as soon as it goes up.
Yeah, that's actually a 0. That's not 1 or 2. That's a 0 that's been raised artificially by their algorithm.
And this is super capitals.
Yeah.
Not capitals.
I don't think they actually released the capital one, but I think
this
is indicative enough.
I'm far more willing to eat this as it is. Although it's weird because the orange, blue goes all the way to the bottom, but not pink.
That's a you see how it goes flat?
It's really weird. I'm not saying that you're wrong.
It's not actual data. That's an artifact of their algorithm.
Yeah, odd. But yeah, no, I'm much more willing to consider this being a real thing because I think that some people were still building carriers and dreads, but ain't nobody building the Titan with how much they were costing. I'm pretty sure.
If people were building carriers and dreads, they were for themselves to use because carriers and dreads never got below their market cost never rose above their build cost. Even at the very end, right before Siege Green, the highest a dread got was 5.5, and that's not enough to.
Well, that's what I was saying is that nobody was building it for profit. The only people that were building it because they needed one. That's what I meant by
or they want the
soft cap.
Sense of pride and accomplishment from having built one.
Sure. So that's what I meant by soft cap. But it appears to be that soft cap was incredibly effective against supers, at the very least. Interesting. Very fascinating.
De facto hard cap. But the thing is, these things don't benefit if there are no more supers around that can be built, who benefits? The people who already have supers. Who's the people that already have supers?
Right. No, I'm not saying it's a good thing. I was resolving that with the information because I was this doesn't match my reality, but I was just talking about normal capitals, not super capitals. Because see, those of us in faction warfare aren't allowed to build super capitals.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah, because you don't have solve. But yeah, I see. Well,
That's a different issue, though.
this was the one change that had me upset because it was a change that no reasonable game company should have made. But CCP works in magical ways.
This is this is wild, and this is one of the things I really really like about you. You know, obviously you're going to get a lot of hate just because of the fact that you've got the B there, but you're not toting the line. Like, you're pointing out stuff. Like, I've heard the line. I know the line. I've watched the Matani. We've all seen the meta report. This stuff ain't in there. This is like a different level. This is like, you can, every single thing that you've shown me so far, I went into it skeptical, and by the end of it I'm like, holy shit, yeah, that I can't, how does any of this work? How have we gotten this far? Yeah, so to that end, I think that at worst you could be considered a necessary evil that should be on the CSM. But I think that it might even be more appropriate to consider you probably one of the most effective people that we could put on the CSM, right? Because we often talk about like the access that CSM gets. And again, I don't need 5 people telling CCP the null line, right? Like, everybody knows that the DBS sucks. We don't need more people explaining saying to CCP, no, the DBS sucks, the DBS sucks. We need people that are able to show this kind of stuff, show the things like the taxes, show the things that it's like, oh, well, congratulations, you just did a great rework of the market. This is a big problem. Can we also get this worked in too? This is all things that, again, I often say, like, what would you be afraid of not being on the CSM if you weren't there? And I think that it's very obvious in this case, right? Like, I'm now afraid of you not being on the CSM, if for no other reason than, like, you bring that necessary medicine of real talk information that I think would be very useful as a baseline. As you were saying, like, in order to have a discussion, you need to start with information, right? In order if you're going to be persistent.
I think it's actually a real big confidence booster, because if I was able to turn you from a skeptic to a believer, maybe it'll work on CCP as well.
Yeah, definitely did a better job of that this year than last year. I'm not.
Last year was opinion. This year is just data.
That's true. And it's a much stronger case. You're going to be showing this tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I will be presenting the same slideshow on the CSM interview tomorrow, and hopefully, maybe I'll go in and change some of the formatting now that I've shown it, and see some of it's very hard to read.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing, but also I'm glad that we were able to take the time to really dig through it all, because I know that they often don't give you guys enough
we get
for this kind of presentation. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think that is a lot, and more than anybody should have to put up with in a single sitting. So I guess thank you for coming by and hanging out. It's been a lot of fun for me, and I'm sure at least a few super nerds out there that legitimately had fun during this. Everybody else, I appreciate you guys hanging out. This is useful information, right? Even if it's just a splinter in your mind that you now know these things about how the market works and how industry works, and how to get an advantage on what to refine versus what not to refine in different places based on the way that these values work. Like, there's all kinds of secondary information that we could pull from this discussion. So yeah, I want to thank everybody who's been watching this. If you're checking it out on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe before you leave. Any questions that you have, go ahead and post it down below, or in his forum post, which will be linked in the doobly-doo down below.
The McBeggar, they don't have one. They just hired one. CCP, I forgot. Sorry.
Repeat the question, because the YouTube doesn't see
McBeggar was asking, how come CCP is continuing to do these sort of mistakes and misreading statistics when they have a data scientist? And the answer is they don't have a full-time one. CCP Larrikin was their stand-in after CCP Quant left, but CCP Larrikin is also a proper dev. He's wearing multiple hats, and data scientist is not, I think, his primary hat. But they did hire a new data scientist just this last couple of months. Let me grab his name.
Was that the Quant's brother or whatever it was?
Quant's brother, CCP Estimate, is the new data scientist they just
Right.
hired. And what's really what's really actually an encouraging moment for me is that so if you go to the I don't know if my campaign page is open. Can you go to the April MER? The April MER post on my campaign page.
Here we go. Yep, it's up.
So in that one, I list like a bunch of issues with the MER, and like a week later, CCP Estimate actually messaged me on Reddit and said, "Hey, it's good feedback. I'm gonna see if I can solve some of these." That's a really good sign.
Yeah. What did you think of his presentation at FanFest? Because I was really,
I liked it. I liked it.
really
I mean,
okay.
I mean, it obviously data is not everyone's thing, but I really liked it.
I didn't like the fact that they tried to apples for apples compare ratting levels prior to 2016
the
to
thing is,
after 2000.
the data scientists don't make the things. If you're a data person, you generate data to support decisions leadership has already made in 99% of times. That's just how it is.
That's
Like
fair.
it is the rare occasion where you get to make data that changes that leaderships then make decisions based off of.
It just
It's just life.
it gave me the wrong vibe to have him try
Yeah,
to claim it like
I
that.
think someone in the environment team, not going to name names, told Estimate, "Hey, by the way, give me some data to back this up," and Estimate made that.
Well, let's hope that further offerings by him is going to be pretty strong. But I'm glad to hear that you are positive about it. And yeah, so I think that without further ado, I'm going to let everybody go. But on behalf of Angry Mustache and myself, Ashtarothi, the voice of New Eden, thank you all for watching. And until next time, I'll see you in space.
And thank you for having me.